Good morning and welcome to the 50-cent tour of Friday, May 24th, 2013, the last day before a 3-day weekend. So the Liberty bus will not be running on Monday, but we'll be back again with full force on Tuesday. If there's really dramatic news over the weekend, I will probably put together some links and just put them up at pearlsofliberty.com. But we shall see how the weekend plays out. Hopefully we'll all have a nice weekend, good weather, time with family and loved ones, and a good race on Sunday with nobody getting killed. Please find a seat on the Liberty bus and we will begin our tour. Oklahoma targeted weaponized weather event, says former weatherman. I'm not saying this, I'm just presenting the information. I just want to put some things out there. I don't know if you've been aware, but there have been some huge earthquakes the last few days. And I'll show you the list in a minute, but there was one, I think, that was 8.3 off the coast. And I have a little earthquakes app on my iPod. And it lets me know, it just gives me alerts when there's an earthquake. And I've been noticing the last week, there have been, it's unusual to see a 6.0. I mean, it's not extraordinary, but it doesn't happen maybe once a week. There have been quite a few this week. There's been a lot of earthquake activity this week. And if you're ever curious about what's going on, you can go to earthquake.usgs.gov, and I'll have that link, of course. This was an 8.3 that occurred this morning, and that is a big earthquake. So there's a lot of activity going on in that realm. Are they caused by HARP? I don't know. I just want to bring this up because, John McAfee's been posting these little blurbs at the top of his page a lot recently. And the one for yesterday said that, maybe the day before as well, said that the people responsible for chemtrails and HARP had been detained, questioned, arrested. I'm not exactly sure. And here, Bill Gates Foundation directors have been arrested for supporting chemtrail poisoning. It's public knowledge that Bill Gates gives millions of dollars of his personal money to fund chemtrails, and I had an article about that a little earlier in the week. But as far as chemtrails and HARP, as far as this whole announcement, I take it with a grain of salt. I want it to be true. I guess I'm maybe about 70%. I guess where I really am is I believe it, but I'm not going to emotionally invest in it because we need to be able to maintain and not become discouraged. And I think sometimes when we emotionally invest in some of these things, it tends to, it can give us false hope. Even if it's true, it just hasn't happened yet. Because of how we're wired, we just expect things to happen right away. So I am just floating this out there, and let's hope that it's true. But the idea of the HARP activity, earthquakes, weather intensifying when the bad guys are under pressure, that does lend some credence to some of this in my mind. And what kind of pressure are they under? Well, liberals skewer Obama administration. The press is, things are changing a little bit. There's that shift. Months ago, Benjamin Fulford stated in his blog that the mainstream media was going to be carrying more truth in their articles, and that these things were going to begin to be coming out more. I think that we're seeing that. I think that the heat is getting turned up. What will finally happen? It's difficult to say. I'm hoping and believing that the white knights, white hats, whatever, are victorious, that we will have our republic restored. But of course that won't be the end of our responsibilities or our work. We'll have to remain diligent and be involved in the transition. Department, here's where the old, you know, the tentacles are still in place. You know, I suppose you could kill the spider, but whatever is caught in the web is still caught in the web. So it's going to take, even when these changes happen, when the republic is restored, it's going to require some time for the changes to extend into every dark corner. I love reading Lord of the Rings. At the end of Return of the King, the hobbits go back to Hobbiton, and they still have a lot to deal with when they return home. I won't get into it because it would take me too long, but you know, you can cut the head off the snake and the snake can still wiggle. So we are going to have a lot of cleanup work to do when the Republic is restored. The Department of Homeland Security teaching kids to go to FEMA camps in a time of crisis. There's fear in this. I mean, I was talking with some friends last night about growing up, being in elementary school in the 60s, and the films that they made us watch about nuclear weapons and how many of us could die with an atomic bomb and how many of us could die with a hydrogen bomb. And honestly, there were a few times as a child that I came pretty close to throwing up. You know, kids don't need to have their worlds invaded by that, and this is that to some extent. But of course, this is also reinforcing how they want the kids to respond to the government. But it's all fear. It's all wired with fear. And that's why I bring up this video, which I've posted before, the story of your enslavement. It talks about how fear makes us vulnerable to being enslaved. And, you know, the other day I had that quote from Robin Hood, "Rise and rise again until lambs become lions." We are in the process of becoming lions. And until we become lions, no matter what changes come in the government or the banking or whatever, we will still be vulnerable to the fear and to being taken advantage of, manipulated, and controlled. The change comes with us, starts with us. I guess that's really what I'm trying to say. Don't believe the publisher's hype. Support open access. This is more fear. You know, they throw out all this stuff. If this happens, then that's going to happen. Make it sound like it's going to harm you. Think carefully and realistically. And you know, none of us can afford to accept, and I'm not telling you how to think, I'm sorry. None of us can afford to just be told something and not analyze it. And I hope that you will analyze what I say as well, because we're all fallible. Representative Adam Schiff preparing legislation that could end AUMF, remove authority for war on terror. This is pretty cool, as long as it's not replaced with something else. According to a report, Representative Adam Schiff, Democrat, California, is preparing legislation that would end the 2001 authorization for use of military force, and in doing so would remove much of the authority for the war on terror and all that comes with it. So again, some of these issues are moving into the mainstream. To change gears a little, just to alert people, Xbox One by default features a camera that works in the dark and microphone you can't turn off. I've read other things about the new Xbox. Always on microphone and camera that works in the dark, both of which are constantly connected to the internet and can't be turned off. I guess I don't even need to really say anything about this, right? I wouldn't buy it. That's what I will say. This is pretty remarkable, and the other things will be pertaining to health and the weekend, but this is the last real news what's significant, and this is very significant. This is from 2008. This representative in Oregon stood up and said that the confidential annual financial reports show $4.9 billion available to the state over what all were being told, $500 million. And he says in the video, 71% of $4.9 billion was available to the state for their budget. And it is a remarkable video. It only takes a couple minutes, and I'm putting in the video link. This goes to a playlist, but it's this video that is just remarkable. There's no question. If anybody doubts CAFRs, if you've ever tried to convince anybody, it's right here. And like I said, this is from 2008, but still very relevant. Hey guys, we're rich. Alex Jones has said that the state of California has something like $70 billion. Might even have been 700, 400 billion, a huge amount in their coffers. Isn't it interesting too that that's, you know, confidential annual financial report, when you say it, it's CAFR. I find that kind of amusing. And as you are deciding what to have for your holiday weekend feast, go easy on those buns. Modern wheat is the perfect chronic poison, says expert. So, you know, there are other grains that you can make bread out of. There's spelt. There are, you know, there's amaranth. If you start to search around, you'll find some interesting alternatives to wheat. And if you can get to a big health food store, you'll find some bread that does not have wheat in it. That's really quite good. If you love bread, you can make bread, or sometimes find it to buy, out of unbleached spelt, and it's delicious. It tastes like bread. So you don't have to give up bread necessarily, but careful of that wheat. And Bob Marley's son speaks out against high fructose corn syrup. As it's Memorial Day, traditionally we remember servicemen, and I do appreciate the sacrifices that they have made, and the ones that are in the service now are still making, and actually the ones that are out of the service are still making because of PTSD and some of the health issues that they suffer. So I'm all for remembering them, but you know, there are some soldiers that never carried a gun, and I believe that Bob Marley was a soldier for liberty and justice. He wasn't a perfect man, you know, but I really believe that his heart was for liberty, for equality, and he loved people, you know. He forced two opposing politicians that had been seriously battling each other to come up on stage together at one of his concerts and grasp hands. And he really ticked off the establishment, and I'm fully convinced that his cancer was given to him. And, you know, if he, who knows, he was very sick when he was still in Jamaica, but he went to a clinic in, I think it was Germany, and that's where he really took a turn for a worse and died. So the whole story, very sad. He's kind of one of my heroes. Anyway, it's good to hear his son is also a freedom fighter on this level. Thanks to all the freedom fighters, were they military or poets or musicians. God bless all those who are still living, and let those who have died see our victory from afar. You know, the Bible says that we're observed by a cloud of witnesses, and the people who have gone before us to heaven. I really believe that. And, you know, sometimes you can kind of sense them watching, and they're watching. And I think that we are somewhat obligated to them to live according to the standards that they lived by, and even surpassing them. Because, you know, when you lose your ego, you actually want to be surpassed by those who follow you. So let's do what we can, right? And in the meantime, you know, the joy of the Lord is your strength. So find some joy in your life. The Magic of Moonbows. And this video is from Yosemite. And I did not know there were moonbows. I've actually seen fogbows before, and once, and that was astounding. Moonbows are also quite lovely. So enjoy that video. I hope you can get out in nature this weekend and get away from the computer and live real life and be with those you love. The 50 Cent Tour is a presentation of She Who Will Walk in the Dark Productions. Thank you for participating in today's tour. The dawn is coming, and I have the rooster here to remind us that we can make some noise and wake people up. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Hoping that you will have a fabulous weekend, some good rest, some good fun. Hoping that you will love one another, take care, and insist on liberty.